What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, thank you for joining us. We've got a crazy awesome car on the Hub Diner today. We've got none other than Terrence Williams 73
I think so.
73 Monte Carlo. Absolutely gorgeous car. Can't remember what the exact color of it is, but it is this crazy color red, all the chrome, all the trim.
This is his mom's car that she bought brand new.
In 73.
This car has never left the Terrence Williams family. That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
73 to, it's like 50 years.
It's over 52 years. Yeah.
Is that 52 years?
52 years, yeah.
Wow, that's an old car.
It's crazy. Crazy to think too, man. But yeah, this has got our 540 big block Chevy in it with twin torque storms. I can't remember exactly what we engine dyno this particular engine at, but I'll let you guys know it's a lot. Like 1800 horsepower, I believe, is what we dynoed it at. So it is a lot of power. This is a 632. Oh my goodness, dude. I see it's been a minute since he's actually had this because he's been enjoying the car and taking it to shows and showing it off and doing absolutely wicked 140 mile an hour rolling burnouts with it with 24-inch wheels. So we've got rubber bands, boy. The Toyo Proxys. It's a good tire, but a 295 3024. This will not hook up with that engine no matter what you do to this car. So it is a rolling burnout machine. With that being said, this car does ride the rev limiter quite a bit. As Jared has experienced, we do have our guys from Torque Storm here that are going to help us a little bit on this. So being that it does spend a little bit of time on the rev limiter, or a lot of time on the rev limiter, one of the things we're going to be doing onto the tune is softening that rev limiter up, and we're going to try and keep belts from coming off of it, because that is an issue that he had run into, more than likely probably because it's on the rev limiter. That's just what happens when a blower car hits the rev limiter, it kicks the belt off. So we're going to try and soften that up, make sure that there's absolutely no issues with any belts going on. So that's why the Torque Storm guys are here helping me on it. And we're going to check all our bases, make sure things are good, so he can go out and beat the absolute crap out of this thing on the street, going to car shows, Cars and Coffee, just enjoying the car like he was meant to do with it. So let's get the laptop in there. Oh, one more thing. Got to check this out. It's got the swivel seats in it. Look at this. If this isn't luxury, I don't know what it is. You can sit right in it, rotate into place.
That's cool.
Yeah. Imagine hopping out of this bad boy Sunday morning, going to church, stepping out in your suede suit. That's how I picture myself in this thing. But yeah, that pretty much does it. Big sound system in the back, super nice restoration, great bodywork, great paint work. Let's get the laptop out and let's see what's going on. All right, let's talk about the tune here. So this is a 632, obviously, like Jared and Chris pointed out, which I totally forgot that we had done it this way. So being that it is a 632, it does not require very much boost to make big power. So I believe that this is something that's making, you know, in between 12 and 15 pounds of boost, if I had to guess, if I remember correctly, and just based off of what the scaling is in the tune. So, and 7,000 RPM rev limiter, because it's not a big revving engine. It's not like Adam LZ's drift big block where we're spinning at, you know, 8,500. So 7,000 RPM rev limiter. It doesn't have any timing removed up top here, and our rev limiter type is set at spark only. So we may mess around with that. I might change it to just soft. And then the other thing that we're thinking about doing actually is something that I learned on Dave Morahan's twin Whipple supercharged big block Camaro, which is a 572 deal. And when he's on the chip in that thing, it is so violent and like popping and banging bad that we ended up actually taking a bunch of dwell time out of it. And now when it is on the chip or a rev limiter, instead of popping and banging and being really aggressive, it comes up with really nice and smooth. So I'm going to try that on this rev limiter just to try and make it as smooth as possible, because this thing will not, it won't hook up on the street. It's impossible. So we're going to soften that up for him. So when it inevitably does hit the rev limiter, it's not so violent. It's not breaking valve train. It's not making things mad harmonically in the engine and kicking belts. So that's probably priority number one. It doesn't really need to make any more horsepower. We just want to make sure that the belts stay on and it lives at least reasonably on the rev limiter. So let's do that real quick. So we changed our dwell time up here. We changed our scaling so that when it approaches the rev limiter, it's going to yank a bunch of dwell time out of it, all the way down to 2.5. And I actually might just change that to 2, honestly. It does require a little bit of experimenting to get it to be smooth, but I'm not going to intentionally put this car in rev limiter. That's not my job. So we got our timing yanked out way up here at the top end, above where it will ever run, actually. And then same thing with the dwell time. So it will not affect how the car actually runs all the way up to the rev limiter. But once it gets to the rev limiter, it'll A, pull timing, and B, pull dwell time. So that's what we're mostly concerned about here. All right, let's fire it up and make sure drivability is nice, revs up good, get it warmed up, and we'll make a pull. Once it gets warmed up, it'll be not as bad, but it is idling just barely on the cusp of stalling. So as it's warming up here, now it's starting to idle better. So we'll have to address that, but no biggie. Dude, this thing is gonna be so loud. That's why I had to have Nate get me some headphones for this, because I think we're all ready to make our first pull on it. See what it does. All right, did not record or sweep that time. I don't know why. My dad was in there messing with the settings, so I have to have him come over and see what he changed.
It did do the sweep though.
It didn't sweep RPM wise.
Oh.
No, it just
held it?
It just held it, yeah. But we did get our first data log to look at, which that's fine. You don't really need to make a full bore, full RPM pull first pass anyways. All right, so we got our first steady state data log unintentionally, but it is workable. So that's showing us what we need to see, at least for the preliminary pull. We are right here at 5,300 RPM or so, which is about 60 miles an hour. And you can see it comes up on the converter just a little bit there, which is why it over revs, and it comes back down right to about where 60 mile an hour wheel speed is. So we're correcting on our closed loop comp, not very much. Our estimated VE is looking good. Timing is right where it should be. Boost is at 7 PSI. So I would imagine as this thing spins up, we'll probably be, you know, somewhere 12 to 13 maybe PSI. And everything else is looking good. We can pull up our oil pressure, which I was watching that on the dash and it was fine. So yep, 84 pounds of oil pressure, so we're all good there, nice and steady. Looks like all of our bases have basically been checked. Now let's get this dyno to sweep. We'll make a full pull on it, see how much power it's making. We'll read a spark plug real quick just for sanity's sake. Now this tune is basically the tune that it left the dyno with, so I know that all of our parameters and numbers as far as fuel and timing are where they should be at. So I'm not really that concerned about that, but we are going to check the spark plugs just to be sure.
Just making drivability that much better.
That's right, buddy. Before I make this next pull, I wanted to talk about the Super Trick exhaust system that's on this thing. It looks like either 3.5 or maybe even 4 inch. Maybe 3, I think it's 3.5 inch stainless all the way through the car, all the way back out the bumper. And we've got some straight pass-through mufflers, must be right off of our header. So it's got a ginormous, super beautifully done exhaust system on it. The only thing I would change is I'd probably put an X pipe in it. I think it probably needs that. All right, we got our first data log off of a real pole. You see I just tagged the rev limiter out there just to kind of see what the dwell and what the ignition timing was going to do. I actually need to move my timing, I don't know what, no, I don't even know what you'd want to call that. Your timing wall, I guess, back a little bit or change the scaling, because it did not knock any timing out of it, but it did knock the dwell out of it. So our volume compensated dwell, you know, goes up at 4.8, and then as I come up to the rev limiter, it knocks it all the way back down to 3. So I'm gonna get a little bit more aggressive with that and a little bit more aggressive with the timing, and maybe try and shorten that window up so that it hits it, at least timing wise, a little bit before what it is now, because it actually doesn't even look like it actually touched my timing wall. So move that back, check a spark plug, make sure that looks good, which I'm sure it will. And I need to correct myself, because this made 17 and change, almost 18 on the full race setup. The way it's set up now is the pump gas tune. So this is how he drives it on the street. So it's got pump 93 in the back. It's got the slow pulleys on it. And with pump gas and the slow pulleys, we're at about 14, just over 1400 horsepower at the crank, with full exhaust system, mufflers, turbo 400, overdrive. We've got, you know, probably 30% loss, which is why if you look up there, it makes 1000 horsepower. And you can kind of see it lay over just right there, partially because I was on rev limiter, and also partially because I yanked the dwell time out of it. It's probably just running out of spark up there. On something that's 632 cubic inches, it needs all the dwell time it can get if it was revving out and making that power. So we're going to get a little bit more aggressive with that, shorten that window up, and we're going to see what we can do. The main goal here is to soften the rev limiter as much as possible, because after consulting with Chris and Jared, who are here from Torque Storm, and obviously my dad and myself all conversating about it, we're basically certain that this thing is kicking belts off of it because it's hitting the rev limiter so hard. So that's what our main goal is here. We're not trying to get a big power number. We just want this to be like in its final form, driving good, able to beat the crap out of it and not have it kick the belt off. It's kind of a pain in the butt if you think about it. If you're at Cars and Coffee and you know you don't bring any tools with you and it kicks a belt off, kind of sucks. So
Well, it sounds like he's on the rev limiter. Like,
it sounds
most of the
like,
time that he's
from
driving.
talking to Jared rode with him in this car over there in Wisconsin, and he was fearing for his life. So, and I'm sure he was. So it spends quite a bit of time on the rev limiter, which is why we're in here doing this. So let's go check that stuff out real quick, and we'll make another pull. All right, we've got a spark plug out of it. He's been driving quite a bit on this plug set, so that's why it's got a little bit of corrosion, a little bit of buildup on it, which is, it's not a big deal. We can see our timing mark is looking a-okay. If anything, there is room to go on it, but at this power level, considering, you know, even with the air filters, the full exhaust system on it, you know, it's probably still making 1400 some odd horsepower and over 1000 at the wheels. There's not really a reason to pursue putting any more power to it, especially when he still has the race tune, which I don't even think he's ever used the race tune, probably because it's not usable. Maybe on like a radio prep track or something like that if he goes to a big wheel race. Nothing to do really there as far as adding or subtracting timing. Looks a-okay. So we're gonna slap this back in there. Let's make another pull. I may even entertain letting it, I hate doing this, but I know that it's gonna be okay because this is how this engine lives. I might just let it sit on the rev limiter for just a little bit longer rather than, you know, my natural instinct is to let off of the throttle once you hear that first tit-tit. So we'll let it sit on the rev limiter for just a second, just to make sure that the belt doesn't skip off of it, and our timing and our dwell are all working, and we're basically gonna call this thing done. Fought the belt.
Lost the belt.
We were doing so good too. It was so hopeful.
Both of them.
All right, so unfortunately it ended up kicking the belts, which I'm kind of surprised at because I got it like way soft on the rev limiter. So I guess I'm just gonna have to get a little bit more aggressive with trying to soften it up even more until it physically will not. I don't know if it perfect until it will physically not rev. I guess until it stops revving, where it reaches a point in timing and dwell to the point where it just won't rev up to the rev limiter and hit the rev limiter per se, but the engine speed will actually slow down so far by the time it gets to the rev limiter that it will hopefully, if it stays on the rev limiter, if Terry's wide open throttle, burning the tires off, that it's smooth enough that it won't do that. But it's kind of a tall ask, I'm not gonna lie. An engine like this at 632 cubic inches, twin blowers on it, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of harmonics that are there. That it's one of those things where it's like you're almost asking to do something that's impossible, but not quite. And I'm gonna do my darndest to try and make it so that it does not do that on the rev limiter. So we know that the belt is completely fine. If it's just like going through the gears, it's fine. It's a rock star. It doesn't have any issues. It's just when it sits on the rev limiter, which this engine, that's how he drives it. That's how he wants to use it. That's his prerogative. Nothing wrong with that. So we just got to do what we can to try and minimize the risk of kicking belts off of it. Just got to do what we got to do. So I'm getting even more aggressive with the timing and with the dwell, knocking it out, changing our rev limiter configuration specifically to soft, so it'll start knocking cylinders out of it as far as ignition once it approaches a certain RPM, on top of the timing and on top of the dwell. So we're gonna see what it does here. While Jared and Chris are over there putting the belts back on for me. All right, let's talk about this data log. So unfortunately, it still kicked the belt off, and they were actually standing right there on the corner of the car, like looking at the belt with the light. And they could see that the slack side of the belt was moving so much when it was on the rev limiter that it was actually touching the water pump. So there's maybe some things that we could do there with a different belt length, maybe adding an idler on that side to limit the amount of movement that belt has when it's in slack like that on the rev limiter. There are some different tricky things that you could do to potentially fix that we're going to have to talk about and explore here. But I've done everything that I can possibly do on the tune, basically. I mean, and we can see, let me get rid of some stuff in here. I mean, that's our RPM on the rev limiter right here. So it doesn't really get much smoother than that. I mean, it's just about, I mean, it's barely even touching the rev limiter where the rev limiter is set at, because I've got so much dwell and timing set out of it. So it's just potentially going to be something we're going to have to talk about with Terry. It's like, hey man, I don't know if it might just have to be something that we live with if it's on the rev limiter its whole life, But we know that for a fact, I've been messing with it, doing drivability, doing the pulls. It never comes off during the pull. It never comes off during any just driving stuff. It's only when it's on the rev limiter, which is something that I mentioned before is very hard to overcome. We can see I've got all of the dwell has been knocked out of it. All the timing is knocked out of it. We're down here at, 1 millisecond of dwell time and 13.5 degrees of timing. So, I mean, there's just not that much more you can do in the tune. So I think we're actually going to be done with the tuning portion of things here. I have to go talk to Chris and Jared, run some ideas by them and see what we can do. And we'll kind of touch base from there. But that's basically it for the dyno for this thing. Made 1,072 horsepower. Can't complain about that for a pump gas, street driving, street cruising tune. That's just going to absolutely annihilate the tires in a car that is absolutely beautiful. This thing is awesome, man. I wish Terry was here and I wish the weather was good. Go take it out for a spin real quick, see what it's all about. But yeah, we're probably going to take it off, put the wheels and tires back on it, call him up and see what he wants to do. If there's any changes that we could make, that's stuff that I got to talk about with the Torque Storm guys. But once again, it's a 632 cubic inch big block with twin superchargers on it. It's not a drift engine that's meant to be on the rev limiter every once in a while, you know. And even now, like, I don't know, just don't put it on the rev limiter as much, you know. It's kind of hard in this car, I'll give them that, but there's some things that you can't have your cake and eat it too, you know. If you want to build something and have something that's on the rev limiter all the time, it has to be set up a specific way for that, right? And this engine is set up to make the power 632 cubic inches, twin blowers like you wanted. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the torque storm system. Obviously, I have the torque storm system on my Mustang drift car that I'm on the rev limiter frequently on. So, and I don't have an issue with it, but it's because it's set up different. It's a 302 cubic inch engine with a single blower on it instead of twins, and it's meant specifically to do that. And there's things that I had to do on the pulley system custom for me to make it not skip belts off and burn belts off on the rev limiter. So that's all things that you guys got to keep in mind if you're in a similar situation to what Terry is, or, you know, if you're me with a drift car. Keep that stuff in mind, guys. So it's not always a belt issue or a supercharger issue if the belt is coming off on the rev limiter. In fact, most of the time it's not. It's just the nature of the beast, really. So we're basically going to close this video out, guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm Kyle. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.